This video is for directors, admin assistants, school bookkeepers, and principals. This is how to use your budget with details spreadsheet. You are on the Settings tab. This happens after you click on your Budget with Details icon. You will see your department to select. This will be either your school or your department. And then you'll see your year, and this will be your fiscal year that's listed there. You will then see your type. This will be your budget. It may also say, for your directors, it may say expenses and revenues, liabilities. And then you'll see a no listed there for include accounts with all zeros. And what does this mean? This means if the budget code has not had any activity yet this year, then the budget code will not show. And we get calls on our support desk at the beginning of every fiscal year, and here's what they say. I don't see my budget code, or I want to see the same codes that I had last year. And the reason that you're not seeing them is there hasn't been any activity in them yet. So if you want to see every single code, whether or not you've had any activity, you would say yes here, but a lot of zeros are going to come in to your accounts. So that's why we default it to no, and only the accounts with dollar activity will come in. And then as you spend money out of your budget, then you will see all of your account codes. The select option for details right here is exactly that. This is on your budget tab and your details tab. So what this means is you can just bring in information for a certain date range or a certain month. And this is really important if you have a large federal budget or you have a large department that you manage, a large high school, a lot of data, and it gets to the end of the fiscal year and you can just bring in a certain date range or a certain month. You can just bring in checks written AP, or you can bring in everything. Then you would hit the refresh button, and depending on your system, you will have to key in your user ID and password, or you'll just be presented with your budget. This is what the budget tab looks like for the budget with details, and we'll be talking about each column heading, and then we'll be covering three things: filtering, subtotaling, and your pivot tables. First, each column heading. The first few columns are your account codes that you have access to. So if we look in columns A through G, these are your fund, purpose, program, object, location, and if they are used at your LEA, your user 1 and 2 codes. Then we see your description, and this is the account code description listed here, which really helps you understand more about your codes if you don't understand them. On your settings tab is a link to your chart of accounts, which will also help you get more familiar with your account codes. Then across the other columns are your beginning budget balance. This is what finance has given to you as your first initial balance, any kind of budget adjustments, your current budget balance. And notice in the upper right hand corner, we always have a show hide here. So notice we have a show hide beginning budget balance. So you can click on the beginning budget and this will hide columns J and K. And notice it goes from column I to column L. You can click to bring it back, and now you will see the beginning budget balance and the budget adjustments. The year-to-date transactions column is a list of all of your invoices paid and your checks that have been written for this year. And then your encumbrances and any purchase orders that are outstanding to give you your remaining balance here. So it will be your current budget balance minus your year-to-date transactions minus your year-to-date encumbrances and POs to equal your current budget balance. Your remaining balance. Then, if you have any escrow, then you have to count that in, and notice this is your 121 code. So your teacher salaries are from 100 to 199, and so you have to account for your salaries, which are your 10-month employees that get paid over 12 months. So we have to account for your escrow here, and so this is your balance with escrow. So I'm going to hide your beginning budget balance and your budget adjustments to just show current budget balance. And then what we can see across here, I'm just going to pick one example here. Across here, we can see what has been spent in each individual month for month-to-date expenses. So this is like a check register. So what each individual month your amounts have been spent, the dollars spent in each individual month. So you can unselect the month to date under Show Hide, and that will hide all of your month to date. If you only want to look at a particular month, say September, you can just look at September's month to date. If you want to bring back everything, the original view will bring back all columns. So I'm going to hide the beginning budget balance again. And the reason that I like to show this is because if you wanted to print this budget, for instance, you're an admin assistant or you're a bookkeeper and you want to print this for your principal, you can't really print the year-to-dates because that will take up 3 pieces of paper. So it's nice to be able to hide that month-to-date and maybe just look at the current month. So that's a little bit about the description of each individual column and what's in the column. So now on to filtering. So if I wanted to filter, these drop-down triangles, and notice they're on every single column, are filters. And so I can drop down on a column heading where the filter is, and I can unselect the select all, and I can put a check mark on the, in this example, the program that I want to filter on. So I'm just going to look at my 061 money, and notice I'm filtered for 061 all the way down. And I can look across here, and this is my remaining balance, $22,000 and excuse me, 061. So now I'm going to filter on my 050 money and look at my balance, and I have $346,000. So it's that easy to filter on something. To see everything again, you just check the select all. Notice for fund, if I filter on fund, these are my funds. Fund 1 is my state money, and the way I remember that is I want to spend all of my state money first. Fund 2 is local. Fund 3 is federal. Fund 4 is capital outlay. Fund 8 is also a local. Fund 5 is child nutrition. So I can filter on anything that I'd like to filter on. We also give you 2 buttons in the upper right hand corner that will hide all of the payroll codes. So if I'm an admin assistant or a bookkeeper and I don't really have any control over payroll, and maybe I just want to net out everything but payroll, then I can hide the payroll codes. So I'm going to click on Hide Payroll Codes, and I get a little message, and it just tells me, okay, click on Filters On and Off to bring back all my codes, and I'll say okay. And I'm going to hover right over my object code. Remember, my payroll codes are from 100 to 299. So now I can come down here, and for everything that's not payroll, I can see that I have $98,000 in my budget. non-payroll related. And I can look down here and see what's in the red and what's in the black. So that's helpful. So I click on filters on and off and filters on and off, and that brings back my whole budget so I can filter on anything. So that's how easy filtering is. I just drop down and click on, for instance, if I wanted to see all of my federal money, Fund 3. Now I'm looking at federal money, and I could come down and look at my balance, $346,000 on federal money. And I can click filters on and off once and twice. And now I'm looking at my whole budget again. So filtering is very easy, and I can filter on anything. So we'll see once we get to the details tab down here that I can filter even here. So if I was looking for the word supplies, I can just type the word supplies. Notice how it's upper and lower case, but it didn't care because it found everything. So I'm just going to click on OK. And notice right here it finds supplies in object 411, but also 418. So this is very helpful when you're trying to learn your codes or you're a new admin assistant or director. I can filter on what's over here. So I'm just going to take my filters on and off and my filters on and off. Okay. I'm going to filter on my 024 money. Just to show you that, again, I could filter on my program money here. And I'm able to see that. And again, I want to be looking at my bottom line numbers here. Okay. I'm going to go in, look at my 050 money, also known as Title 1. And notice by clicking on 050 money, that all is in Fund 3. So you learn a lot just by clicking and filtering, looking at different things, dropping down, filtering. Moving on to subtotaling. The main thing about subtotaling is you need to be sure that you are not filtered when you begin to subtotal. So just make sure that nothing here looks like a little funnel. These all look like drop down triangles. If you were a school or a director, you most likely will want to filter on either Fund PRC or Fund PRC Purpose. So I'm going to begin by looking at Fund PRC, and all you do is click the button. You'll get asked two questions. The first, do you want page breaks for each fund? This is if you'd like to print. First time through, I suggest no. The second message, click on level 4. You know that you have done subtotaling right if you get numbers in the upper left-hand corner. So it just tells you that level 4 has details. I'm going to click OK. And the nice thing about this is notice how it just nets everything out. So I've got my current budget balance right here, how much I've spent so far, how many more POs are outstanding, what my remaining balance is, what the escrow is, and what my total balance is with escrow. So here's really the bottom line number by PRC, each of my 2 PRCs in Fund 1, my 2 PRCs in Fund 2, and my 1 PRC in Fund 3. So this is a fantastic report if you're a bookkeeper or an admin assistant to give to a director, or if you're a director or a principal to run. So that was Fund and PRC. Now, the report just appeared magically when we hit this button. But we have other options up here to look at other subtotals. I will tell you that this report is actually number 3, but we can look at 1, 2, and 4. Click on 1, and that's just the bottom line numbers. Option 2 is just a list of the funds and what the totals are. 3 is that report that we just got. And 4, like the little message said, you get it with details. So if you can't remember that your 121 was your salary with details, or your 162 was your substitute, then now I'm able to see it broken out. And that's my 024 total. Because remember, on the level 3, I just had it netted out and I have no description. My 024 money is just all lumped together. I don't see my broken out by 121 or 162 or etc. So this is more granular because I'm seeing it broken out by each object code. Let's say you'd like to run another subtotal. First order of business, remove your current subtotals. That's going to remove your 1, 2, 3, 4 in the upper left-hand corner. Wait for that to disappear and then run a different subtotal. I'm going to choose Fund, PRC, Purpose. I get the same message. Do you want page breaks? No, I'm not going to print. And now notice it says to click on a different level, 3, and I have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels here. So I'm going to click OK. So notice it came up with a different screen here, and I'm already looking at the details. So I'm just going to start left to right. 1, the grand total. 2, the fund totals. 3, what we saw before, actually when we chose this one. 4, now I have it broken out by purpose and then by PRC and then by fund. And then 5, how we landed. So this is very powerful. You can run any subtotal that you would like, any way that you would like. So you can see you have many choices up here. So we've talked about filtering, we've talked about subtotaling, and now we're going to talk about the pivot table. Notice my mouse is pointing to the budget pivot table. The other way to choose the budget pivot table is down at the bottom with the tab to the right of the budget called Budget Pivot Table. So this is your report builder. You can do anything here. You can drag and drop. You can take things off of the report. You can bring things into the report. So let's do that. Let's say that I don't want the beginning budget and the budget adjustments. I just click on the column heading and I take it off. I don't want the budget adjustments. I click on the column heading and I take it off. That's how easy it is. You cannot hurt these spreadsheets. You can't mess them up. If you do something wrong, like take it off the report and you want it back, you can use your undo button in Excel in the upper left-hand corner. There's always an undo button. Now, if you noticed back over on the budget tab, we are using something called the description here for salary, teacher, substitute pay. We saw supplies and materials when we filtered. Over here, we're using the PRC description, but we have something available to us called the description. So instead of throwing this off the report, it has a drop down here, which means anything from fund, purpose, program, and PRC description, I just grab and I take up to column A. And then if I want the description, I'm going to drag and take down anywhere in the report. Notice it looks like a T-bar, and I'm going to drop it with my left mouse. I'm holding it down. I'm going to lift it up. Now I have the description, and that's what I'm used to seeing. So if now I wanted to look for the word supplies, I can do it. Or if I wanted to filter for my federal money. I'm going to click on the full screen print view. And notice that over here in this column, K, I have a percentage spent. Your principles and department directors will love this column. What it shows you is what percentage of your budget has been spent. So you are no longer going to have to get out your calculator and calculate your percentage spent to track your budget. You can very easily and quickly look at it. You may be looking at this pound sign value going, well, what is that? What that means is you have a zero budget, but you were spending money. The year-to-date transactions are $5,600, but you have no budget. So we cannot calculate this amount right here. We can't subtract from zero to give you a number. For your supplies, you have $70,000 budget, and you've only spent $31,000. So you still have $39,000, and you've only spent 44% of your budget. So this is very helpful in budgeting, because what you want to do is look especially at your Fund 1 and be sure you spend all of that state money first. So you can filter on anything that you need to, because you want to be sure and get all the money every single year. So you can filter. So this is totally flexible with whatever you'd like to see. Now, I worked with the report that already came in here, but there are other reports up here that you can run. So notice you have a budget year-to-year comparison. So that will look at last year's budget compared to this year's budget. You have Fund and PRC. Well, we already have Fund and PRC. It doesn't have Object in it, so we could run that report and Object would come into this report, or we could just click and bring in the Object code. Notice how it does a subtotal. We can double click on the column heading, click on None because we don't want a subtotal, and notice how now the subtotaling goes away. This is Excel, so I'm just going to shrink up that column heading so it doesn't take as much room. When you're ready to print in a pivot table, I always click on Print and do a print preview, and just make sure in the lower left-hand corner it says page 1 of 2 or 4 or 6, but not 600, because you want to make sure that your last column here says percent spent, because on the report it said percent spent. And notice between column N and 0, the dotted line is my paper edge. So once you do a print preview, it puts my paper edge there. So if I start adding things to my report, I'm going to bring down my location, I'm going to bring down user 1, I'm going to not subtotal, and I'm going to drag this back and not subtotal, and drag this back. You can see I'm still not at the paper's edge. So that's the kind of thing that you're looking for. Once you do a print preview, you can see where that paper edge is. So that is the budget pivot table. And we have other tutorials, videos that you can watch on our budget pivot table. We're now going to move and talk about the details. Now, in the details, just to show you, we're going to go back to our budget, and I am going to filter on our 061 money. And I want you to look at this number right here, $40,000. So we have spent $40,000 this year in our 061 pot of money. Where did all that money get spent? Which POs? Which invoices? Which checks? The budget tab is the high level view, the 50,000 foot level view at your budget. The details is the 2-foot view. So this is where you get into the nitty gritty. So I can also over here filter on my 061 pot of money, and I'm going to come over here to my transaction column, come down to the bottom, and voila, that number matches, that 40,982 matches 40,982 on my budget. Those numbers should match. The only time that they will not match is if you are looking in your budget and you have payroll data here. The payroll data does not come in on your details tab. Again, payroll data are 100 object codes through 299. Okay. So let's come over to our details tab and talk about these column headings. So again, what do we see here? Those are the account codes. They will be the same account codes that you have. Here is the date. This is the date that the transaction occurred. Okay, and notice here where the sort only is in blue, the default says it's going to come in date, order, current first. So when you're looking at your spreadsheet, this is going to say 2019 dash the most current date you have, or whatever today's date is. Then this is going to be your vendor name. Also for schools and directors, this also might be a person at your school that might be reimbursed for travel. Any kind of comments about this vendor or person, the vendor or person's the vendor name or person's account number, vendor number, and the journal type. So the journal type here is going to be either an accounts payable, a purchase order, or a budget. So if you were looking for certain POs, we could filter over here for all of our POs. And then we could come over here and filter for a certain PO number. Very handy. So I'm going to bring back everything again. Again, we're looking at all of our 061 transactions. Column N is just for people who have Sunpack and Sartox. Transaction type. So IN is an invoice, PO is purchase order, AJ is an adjusting journal entry, CN is a cancellation, and there are others. The transaction number is a sequential number for auditing purposes in your system. Here's your invoice number. We've already talked about your PO number. Here's your check number. So when you get vendors calling you, you can look for certain check numbers. And then we're going to talk about this transaction type. So you have either a B, which stands for budget, an E, which stands for an encumbrance, or a T, which stands for your transactions. Your T transactions are your checks. So when I filter on my T transactions, notice how this column X, I have dollars in here. These are my transactions that have occurred. And these two columns go to all zeros because I'm filtered on my T transactions. So I'm going to filter on my E's for encumbrances, and this is where I have encumbered the money. So notice a lot of those are purchase orders. You know, when you write your PO, you encumber the money. And then to look at the B's, that's when I have my budget allotment. So in this case, out of my 061 pot of money, I got $10,000, and then I got another $59,000 for a total of $70,000. So this is really helpful information, and that was on July. So usually your budget allocations happen, you know, the first part of the fiscal year. So you learn a lot about filtering and looking at your spreadsheets. So we're going to go look for a certain vendor. And you can certainly do this, which is, you know, scan down looking alphabetically for your vendor, but that's a lot of work. So what you may want to do is just start typing looking for your vendor. So I'm going to look at this particular vendor called Apperson. And here is Apperson. And I have 3 lines for this vendor. And the way you read this is you start from the bottom up. So what I see is a PO hit the system on this date, September 4th, for $394.98. And that's an E. We encumbered the money. There's the PO number. Notice they are all the same. If Apperson showed up over here 15 times, then I would want to filter on the certain PO number. And then only look at that one PO to not be so confused. So I'm looking at one PO for Apperson. We encumbered $394.98 for this one PO. Then along comes the invoice because we're Sunpack and we can see this extra transaction. If you're Link, you will see this, an AP, and you'll see an invoice number. And we see a check being written for $424.69. Note, it is not the same as the encumbered amount. So you do not have to keep a separate spreadsheet to keep up with all the amounts of money that you ordered stuff with and what came in and how much it was, because your spreadsheets are going to do all that work for you. Let your spreadsheets do the work. You can't hurt them. This is output only. You don't have to worry about messing anything up. So there's a difference right there. It could be shipping, it could be tax, it could be a lot of things. Then along comes the last transaction, and here it is, and what that is another E, encumbrance, and that's a credit out of the original encumbrance to make that a 0 with our transaction amount of $424.69. The other place that you would see this is your purchase order spreadsheet. This particular video is not designed to talk about purchase orders, but you could go watch that video and learn all about how to work with your purchase order spreadsheet and see this in action. So that's how you could work with Apperson. I'm going to unfilter and just look at all of my data again. And I'm going to look for Mac Papers. Let's just randomly picking one. So here's Mac Papers. Do I have more than one PO? Yes, I do. So I'm going to pick one PO for Mac Papers. And in this particular case, notice this transaction amount matches exactly. So no discrepancy in the amount of what we encumbered and what we actually wrote the invoice for, right? The PO and the accounts payable check was exactly the same amount. Very, very helpful. But note that we are crossing 2 different months. So sometimes if you're filtering on a month, that could be misleading. So this is very helpful to note, right? Sometimes it's easier by vendor than by month because Mac Papers crossed over 2 months. Here's something in October and here's something in November. So filters on and off and filters on and off. So just very helpful kind of information to know. So we're going to move over to the details pivot table. Just like the budget had a budget pivot table, the details also has a details pivot table. So we have a blue button that says budget details pivot table. And down at the bottom, we also have a details pivot table. I'm going to click at the bottom. So what happens is when you do that, a default spreadsheet comes in, a pivot table, and you can use this one or you can run any report that you'd like to up here. I will tell you that if you're a school or an admin assistant or director or principal, the last 2 over here you will not use, MBEs. Those you won't use. But I will show you 4 that you will use. The first one is the vendor name recap. That's in the second column, the third one down. I'm going to click that button. And what you're able to see, I'm going to click full screen print view, is a beautiful report that shows you each vendor and how much is encumbered, or what POs have we written, how much have you spent, and the total expenses. So notice that there's zeros all down the budget column, so I'm just going to click and drag that off of the report. I'm holding my left mouse down and I'm going to drop it off the report. So now I have every single vendor and how much I've spent with this particular vendor. So in this example of forms and supply, I have $500 that's encumbered, so that would be POs outstanding. I've spent $383 for a total of $893. And every time I refresh the spreadsheet, so I'm going to click back on Settings tab, every time I refresh the data, I could get different information. Because what is happening every day over in finance? Checks are being written, POs are being processed, invoices are being paid. So you can always come here and refresh your spreadsheets all day, every day to get the latest information. And of course, I could print this list. So one day on the help desk, I got a call from a very astute bookkeeper who said, I need to see how much we've been spending for paper over the last 3 years. I said, who is your paper vendor? And she said, Mac Papers. So we clicked and we looked for Mac Papers. And there it is. So we saw this was this year, Mac Papers. And then we went back to the Settings tab and we refreshed for year 8, and then year 7, and then year 6. And however many years that she needed, and we were able to get the information that she needed. That's how easy it is. I'm going to return to the regular view. Again, that was your vendor name recap. The other 3 reports are checks written by month. And this will just show you, I'm going to click full screen print view so we can see more of the report. Every single month of the year, who you made the check out to, the check number, and any kind of comments and the transaction amount. So you can filter, of course, on anything that you'd like. A certain vendor, a certain month, a certain check number, any kind of comments. So that's by month, or you can do it by check number, and that will sort it by check number first. So again, any report, because this is the pivot table, can be customized. So on this report, if I need to see the PO number, I'm going to drag down the PO number till it looks like a T-bar and drop. And notice how the PO number wants to do a subtotal, and I don't want that, so I'm going to double click and click none. And now I have the PO number in my report. So we can see that book source has got several different POs associated with this one check number. I can bring the vendor number down. So you get the idea. Anything can be dragged to the report to customize it. And then the last one that I want to show you up here is staff development. So this is a report of all of the conference registration, education, travel that you may have done, and it's already filtered for you on object code 312, which is your staff development. So again, you can go back to your settings tab, you can filter for year 8 and look at your staff development from last year. This is this year. So this is very nice for departments. You can do this for schools as well and see how much you're spending on staff development. So I'm going to end with just a little bit on your helpful information tab. This is your helpful information tab at the bottom. It's available anytime. You can print this out. It's 40 some pages. Notice it comes up to all topics. But if all you really want is more information on that budget pivot table, you can click on it. Just need to page down a couple more times to get to the budget pivot table, and then you can print that section out. So you could do a file print. And notice that's only 7 pages. So if you're one to have a manual, of course, you could just print that part out. I'm going to click back over on All Topics, and I'm going to type the word Assets. And then I'm going to click Enter, because it tells me to do so. Type the subject, press Enter, and then click on the search button. And the reason that I wanted to type the word assets, I could have used the word revenue or liabilities, but you don't want to use the word budget, because budget occurs a lot in the helpful information, this is a great screen to do a screen print of. This tells you about the payroll codes, 100 to 299. For you directors and admin assistants, your revenue codes are 3000 to 4999. And your expenses and revenues are 3000 to 9999. So this is very, very helpful to print out. And then you can just clear this out by doing a original view button, and that will clear that out right there. Notice we've got filtering, we've got subtotaling, we've got more about the settings tab. So there's all kinds of information just on the details tab, the budget tab. Great helpful information. So I'm just going to click back on the budget tab and end by saying I hope you found this helpful, and any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call or send us an email on the support desk. Thank you for watching.